Happy Friday, everyone! Welcome to 30 Days of Art, Episode 6. Today's painting is titled Koi, and as usual, the real-time version of this video will be available on my Patreon at patreon.com/happydartist. It's over 2.5 hours long. For today's piece, I started off with the intention of doing a watercolor. So here I have my Lil Pods Watercolor set that I got from Juicy Ink's channel as a recommendation, and this Canson acrylic paper, which I prefer over watercolor paper because it's a lot thicker and more durable. So yeah, here I'm just using a red Prismacolor Col-Erase pencil to map out my composition. Yeah, I'm just gonna tell you guys right off the bat that it didn't work out how I planned. I wasn't able to finish the watercolor piece in the way I want, and largely it was due to an unfortunate error. I'm not really sure what caused it, but basically in the left eyelid there, do you see there's like a brown splotch, and I keep going back over it with my paper towel. Yeah, some of the paper seemed to rub off, and this usually doesn't happen with acrylic paper, so I don't know what went wrong here. Maybe it was just a unlucky coincidence. But basically, after a few attempts, I kind of knew that I was not going to get the face nice and smooth. So here I'm like contemplating what I should do. It's definitely not going to work out as a watercolor piece. So instead, I put a layer of vellum, which is that kind of clear parchment paper looking thing you just saw me do. I put a layer of vellum over it, and I used some masking tape and taped it to this drawing board, and moving forward I'm going to be working on it as an oil painting. So if you guys watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I oftentimes use vellum as a surface for my oils, and it works great. It's very smooth. It doesn't absorb the oil as fast, so it doesn't dry as fast as wood. But if you guys are looking for a cheap and fast and light method of painting oils that doesn't require too much prep work, I really recommend vellum. So this is a nice transition into today's discussion topic, which is how to finish a piece of artwork. So a lot of you have asked me, you know, do you ever start working on a piece and you feel really excited in the beginning, but then you somehow along the way get discouraged or don't feel like finishing it because it looks bad and it didn't turn out how you want it to? And yes, I get that feeling all the time. So I'm gonna tell you guys kind of my thought process in how I find the motivation and the courage to fully finish my pieces of artwork. So I'd like to start off with a quote by Leonardo da Vinci, which I found very telling and very relatable, which is, "Art is never finished, only abandoned." And I think that quote really resonated with me because that's kind of how I feel when I decide that my pieces of artwork are complete. It's never because I feel like they're finished, but I feel this urge to stop working on them. If I don't force myself to stop working on a painting, I think I can continue to work on it indefinitely. And I think a reason for that is because, like, I'm a perfectionist and I always pick out mistakes and find places where they need tweaking and need polishing. But B, I also think that our minds are very fluid, and especially the mind of an artist, we are constantly evolving and looking for new ideas and new directions that our work can go. So when we look at a piece that we started a long time ago or even days ago, our mindset is in a different place than where we initially started off. So it's really easy for artists to change our minds and decide that our starting concept might not be as satisfying and inspirational to us now as it was when we first began the piece. And another reason why I think artists tend to abandon artwork is probably because something went wrong, like kind of like what happened with this painting today that I'm working on. Something went wrong and we have to fix it, and when we have to invest time into fixing a mistake, we don't get that satisfying feeling of progress, because all we're doing is kind of repainting areas to get us back to a state that we were already in, versus painting to progress us into a new stage. So that process of repainting and fixing a mistake feels very tedious and dull, and that dull feeling can really discourage us from investing more time into a piece. Another reason I think artwork gets abandoned is because we tend to look at a piece and realize it doesn't look as good as we envisioned. So, sometimes when you have your concept sketch or your thumbnail, because everything is so rough, your mind can fill in the blanks, and you're looking at the potential of what the piece could be. So usually our sketches look really, really promising, but then when we take it onto the canvas and start rendering the little details, as you all know, artwork is a long and tedious process, and it doesn't happen overnight. And especially with paintings, it ends up looking so different from the concept sketch, because now, instead of looking at the potential of a piece, you are now responsible for developing the piece to its full potential. So it can be discouraging along the way if you look at artwork and realize that, oh, this idea that I had in my head doesn't look as good on canvas. And my suggestion to overcome all of those things is to, like I said in my Overcoming Art Block video, force yourself to finish. Because when you finish your artwork, or in the process of finishing your artwork, you will combat a lot of the same fears that led you to abandoning the artwork in the first place. So for example, when your artwork doesn't look as good as you initially envisioned, it's probably because it needs to be worked on more. You need to render things in more details, or you need to add more layers to polish up the skin. Like, there's so many ideas just take time, and if you allow your piece to evolve and give yourself the patience to just work on a piece until it looks good, you will discover that your idea does look as good, sometimes even better than you envisioned. You just have to give yourself the time and put in the work to fill in those blanks. And also, when when you change your mind about your ideas, sometimes when you work on a piece for weeks or even days, and you realize that, hey, maybe I'm not really into the idea that I was so crazy about in my concept sketch. When you are in the process of finishing a piece, you will discover ways to evolve that idea. You don't have to always stick to your initial idea word for word. The process of adding the refining details allows for a lot of room for improvisation. So you could potentially tweak your idea in a way that excites you now. You don't have to completely abandon a piece of artwork and start over. You can simply work with what you have and add tiny little details. Like, for example, here I'm adding this water lily, and in my initial sketch I did not have a water lily, but when I realized that the composition needed a little pop of color on the left side and needed a way to guide the viewer's eyes to flow from the top to the bottom of the canvas, I decided to add a water lily. That happened totally whimsically. I didn't decide this until, I was already probably 3 days into the painting. So yeah, just allow for yourself to let your imagination take control, and almost let the piece take control of itself. Sometimes our artwork will have a mind of its own and will evolve as if it has a life of its own, because we give it that patience and time to improvise. And but of course, I just want to also say that we also should know when to stop. We don't want to keep working on our artwork and kind of beating a dead horse and basically ruining the composition by adding way too many extra details. Sometimes knowing when to stop working on a piece is a skill of its own. I remember reading this interview with James Jean, who's probably my favorite artist, and he said, well, the interviewer asked him, you know, your artwork is so full of details, how do you know when to stop? And he says he usually stops when he feels like any new additions to the artwork feels like it's crowding the piece or feels purely ornamental, meaning like when a new addition no longer supplements the composition or supplements the story he's trying to tell, and it feels like it's just being decorative or being like a way to cramp up the current piece, then he knows when to stop. So if your artwork is feeling cramped and messy and it's no longer adding anything to the painting but rather just taking up room, then you know it's time to stop. So yeah, I hope you guys found this useful. As usual, these are my own opinions, and these are methods that have worked for me. So I hope you guys enjoy watching these videos. Please let me know if there's any other topics that you would like me to talk about in these 10-minute long videos. I'm constantly looking for new ideas to add to my to-do list, and as you know, we still have 24 more episodes to go, so any suggestions would be much appreciated. And I hope you guys enjoyed this painting. I will catch you in my next video. Bye!